Welcome to Outdrive, folks. I'm your host, Cliff Callis, and each week I'm bringing you actionable marketing insights you can apply to reach, connect with, and convert rural American consumers. Outdrive is powered by Callis, a full-service advertising agency with a focus on marketing rural America. Callis offers a wide range of integrated marketing services, including website development, search engine marketing, social media, video, and digital. We develop strategic and creative campaigns to build your brand and your business, and you can learn more about us at ecallis.com. Now join me in the front seat as we head out on the road to success. Let's go. Hey folks, welcome to Outdrive. We've got another great story to share with you today about life and work in rural America. I always enjoy the opportunity to talk shop with a fellow agency owner. And our guest today brings a new twist to Outdrive and his innovative approach to marketing and strategy. Peter Murphy Lewis, known to his clients as Strategic Pete, is the founder and CEO of Strategic Pete, a marketing agency that functions as a fractional CMO, strategic partner, and coach for a wide variety of people, businesses, and industries. Pete, as he is known to his friends, has years of experience doing many different things from many different places. And all of this led him to starting his own agency over 15 years ago. Keep listening for his perspective on disruptors in the marketplace, what it means to partner with a fractional marketing professional, and his take on enjoying life in the Midwest and abroad. I think you're going to like it. Welcome to Outdrive, Pete.
I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited for you to be here as well. I love talking shop. So even if we didn't prepare for this interview, which we have, I know we could talk for more time than what either one of us would be willing to do. But, I'm interested in your perspective on what's shaping marketing today. It changes every day. New technologies are driving a lot of that. I want to hear some more about some of your unique life experiences, because I know you have those. Before we go down any roads like that, let's just start by having you tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I usually divide it up into personal and professional. I'll get the personal out because that's the most interesting, especially if your audience loves rural America like I do. I'm from Kansas, amazing parents, small town called Osawatomie, went to high school in Missouri, and then moved to South America when I was 24 years old with a Rotary Scholarship. And eventually met my wife from South America, had our kid, who's now 8. And we now moved back to Middle America. We live in Wichita, Kansas, in the middle of a zoo with a beautiful family, and I moved my parents close by. From a professional point of view, I've worn a lot of different hats, Cliff. So I started off as a bank teller in high school. Then I worked at a Play-Doh factory in Colorado. Then I worked as an HIV/AIDS caseworker in Massachusetts. Then I was a full-time professor in South America, and then became a CNN correspondent, started my own travel company. I just sold my company in the last 6 months, and I've been in the fractional chief marketing officer space with my agency of about 15 full-time contractors, employees for about 5-ish years.
What a great background. That's diversity. So what did you teach in South America?
International politics, did methodology, quantitative, qualitative, taught people about the relationship between US and China in Latin America and the US and Chinese relationship with the Korean unification process, or lack thereof.
Holy cow. Heavy subject. So how did you find your way to marketing? What was about a marketing career that kind of brought you to where you are today?
The way that I put the dots together is when I was in South America, I was about 27 years old. I was a full-time professor, and I knew that I was never going to make enough money nor have enough freedom to travel the world with the salary and the time that I had. So I tried to get a second job in the evening after being a professor. No one would hire me. So I created my own company. And that's how I got to that dot. The dot of how I was capable of getting into marketing, creating my own company, goes back to my grandfather. My grandfather bought a very small bank in Kansas in 1970 for about $1 million. And that bank is still family run and is, close to $1 billion in assets. So I was surrounded from when I was born until today by people that are way smarter than me, but care about communities, rural communities of that small town of 2,000 people. The bank's still there, still family owned, and still the same employees who want to retire there and die there. And that ability to be good at business and care about people at the same time is what made me successful as an entrepreneur when I started my business in South America.
I totally get that. And gosh, we could go down so many roads from here just based on what you said. The buy a small bank and build it up. What a phenomenal business model that's been for a lot of people. And we went through that with one of our clients that we had for like 20 years where they bought a couple of little bitty banks in the country, built it up to $1 billion, eventually sold out to a bigger bank holding company. Lots of opportunities with that. I like your perspective on shaping your marketing career from the business side of it. I really feel like that's very important. You know, there's lots of aspects about marketing, right? There's strategy, there's creative, there's the numbers side, there's research, there's digital technology. But I think understanding business is very important, don't you too?
I really, really do. When I'm working on my own agency or working with a client, I always try to talk in terms of some type of metric that a non-marketer cares and understands, right? So a non-marketer might be like, what is the ROI? And the average CMO, or maybe not the average CMO, but the marketing manager might say something along the lines of, well, this is around branding, or this is around nurturing, or so forth. That's probably true. Both can be true, but you should be able to come up with some type of metric. Is it going to make your sales cycle shorter in the next 12 months? So will your sales cycle go from 30 days to 20 days? Will the number of touches for the SDR move from 4 down to 2? You need to be able to at least have a guesstimate, and the attribution might not be perfect, but you better be able to give that CEO some type of ballpark figure about why they're spending money on what you're going to do.
And to be able to do that, you really got to understand business and, you know, fundamentally marketing, distribution, pricing, product, etc. So many times in our business, you know, we really deal on the promotional side, right? The advertising, the PR, whatever it is, and we don't get to help shape the product sometimes or really get involved much in distribution other than maybe helping people have a better user experience on their website or attract people to their stores. But that business side is critical. So you ask all the right questions. I always feel like those questions are really critical.
I agree from a question point of view, from a marketer figuring that out. But as both of us being marketers and both of us being founders, CEOs, we can also equip CEOs who are non-marketers to understand some of the metrics that might not line up right away in the P&L in the first year, but it might make sense in year two. I think there's a little bit of education as you and I kind of being in the bridge between these two worlds. We could help out both sides understand each other.
Absolutely. And that education side is important because, you know, our clients, they're dealing in so many different things. And what we do is only one of them, right? So they can't stay up with it like we can stay up with it. And so that education side, and we always feel like we need to kind of lead them along and guide them to where they need to be and help them understand why we're doing what it is that we're doing to help them.
Well, from a human point of view, it lines up with money and economics as well, right? Like I'm hired as a fractional chief marketing officer, and I would say about 30 to 50% of my clients hire me from day one, knowing that they want me to disengage between month 6 and month 12. And they want me to fire myself and replace myself with a mid-level manager who's going to do all of the execution. And that's fine. I sign up for that. That's win-win for everybody here. But if I don't do my job of educating the non-marketers in that executive team in the time that I work with them, they're going to either fire that marketer that I replace myself with, or they're going to run that person out because they're so hard-headed and they're not listening and they won't listen to the metrics and system that they're going to be back talking to me in a year and a half later. And that's not fun for either party because neither one of us had success in what we wanted to achieve.
So you said that 30 to 50% of your business is as a fractional CMO. Is the other half or whatever more geared towards longer term relationships with clients?
Yeah, longer term retainers, relationships, partnerships, sometimes performance based, sometimes equity based, sometimes straight up marketing agency based. My oldest client right now is going on 5 years, and I play a strategic role there and then oversee all of their paid performance My most recent client that I walked into for a short term was we knew that it was going to be 1 year, was to fire myself and replace myself, but set up all of the systems and the funnels and keep metrics so that the non-marketing CEO knew what's going to happen in the future.
When did you identify this niche as fractional CMO? And you probably ought to define it too, because in our world, the traditional approach is you hire an agency and they work for your CEO, CMO, CFO, whoever, or marketing director, or you do things in house. So tell us, man, that was a long question. Sorry about that. But tell us about fractional CMO and how you found it and what it means to you.
It's a nuanced position or role that's coming about. I think people misconstrue it as being a consultant. It's not a consultant because as a fractional CMO, I go to executive meetings. I am responsible for quarterly goals. I work a certain amount of hours every single week only on that company, either training, setting up systems, strategic guidance. A lot of times it's overseeing agencies. I work with a fair amount of clients who are doing $5 to $20 million in annual revenue, but they only have one or two marketers on the team, and it's never the founder. And so they're putting together a bunch of different agencies that might be great at execution and tactics, but the strategy hasn't been set up. So me putting in 10 hours or 20 hours a week is setting up the scorecards so that the marketing agency can actually achieve the business goals that the CEO or executive team wants. So I explain it as a fractional CMO is an in-house person for a fractional part of the time. So you get 100% of the expertise of a senior level marketer at a fraction of the cost. So, most of the times it's 100% of the expertise, but for 25% of the salary, which saves room for you to actually have two people. So you have a fractional CMO on all day Tuesday and on Friday mornings, and then you have room for a marketing manager at $50,000 to $100,000 a year who can do amazing execution. But without the strategy, the marketing manager might not have been able to put together the strategy.
Looking back and thinking about your role, I could see it being really fun because one of the best things I think that I have enjoyed over my career is taking on new clients, learning about their business, helping them get up and running, and then many times handing it off to somebody else, maybe in the agency or maybe in the case of a fractional CMO to an in-house person that then takes the ball and runs with it. So I really get where you're coming from. Is that kind of your takeaway on that too?
I love it. So there's kind of three things that I love about it. One is I always get to focus on bigger problems, and that's entertaining and it's exciting for me. Two is I often get to leave somebody that I've trained full-time in-house because these clients of mine don't know how to hire, fire, or train marketers. They ask me to do that. And I have a ongoing process of bringing interns into my agency. I bring in about 10 to 20 interns per year that I train up in 6 months, almost like an MBA in marketing. And I leave a percentage of those with my clients in-house and I keep a relationship going on. I get to see them grow. And the third thing is I get to put one and two together. So I solve a problem, leave someone in-house who I know is going to be there for the long term. And the third thing is I get to make a lot of money for those clients, not for me nor for the person I leave. Both of those are true. It's a win-win for us, but I get to watch my client make money off of what we set up. It's really, really rewarding.
Yeah, that's very gratifying. I agree with that. Tell me about the rest of your team at the agency.
Yeah, so there's 15 people on the team, 13 of whom were interns with me. Most of them have been with us for longer than 3 years. Some of them have come from private equity turnaround projects that I've done where we've exited a project, a distressed asset, and sold it off. Some of them have worked on a client with me intensively for 9 months to 12 months, and then we come back and we wait for the next client, almost like marketing operators. Right now, we have two full-time video editors, one of them overseeing more corporate and PPC, one of them overseeing more social media, so YouTube and LinkedIn, and moving into TikTok. We have a bag of generalists that are really great at certain areas, whether it might be copy or strategy or SDR or funnel setup or email marketing, and then some specialists in SEO, some specialists in project management. My wife works with me. She does PPC. So We have two tech studs like CTOs who just solve people's ops problems, attribution and CRM problems and PPC problems as well.
Sounds like you got a great team.
We do. I feel blessed. One of the great things that COVID brought to this world is a flood of brilliant people who used to work at offices realized that they could work from home from all over the world. And, you and I growing up in the Midwest, maybe 15 years ago, we might not have been able to find the smartest of the smartest within 10 or 20 miles of us that are willing to come drive to an office or so forth. Well, I can work with a stay-at-home mom 20 hours a week who lives in Bangladesh, and I wouldn't be able to find her within an hour of where I live in Wichita, Kansas.
Yeah, so it kind of opens up the whole world. And of course, you've lived a lot of different places, some great life experiences. You've settled in the Midwest. Is there a certain type of client that you're kind of focusing on? Do you have a niche, a specialty?
I think the specialty, it's usually a B2B business, somewhere close to north of $3 to $4 million a year that has high margins on their product or their service with a slim to none marketing team. So they might have one or two marketers in-house, but they're piecing together lots of agencies. Usually the CEO and or the executive team are not marketers. They realize that if they had a strong marketing brand, their margins and their revenue would be substantially better. And they're tired of working with 2 to 5 different agencies, and they want someone to oversee that process. They don't want to fire the agencies. They just want to make sure that they're spending that in the right direction so they can get a better return on investment. It's kind of the niche. But I mean, my niche is I've worked with 4 zoos in the last 5 years. I've worked with 3 banks in the last 5 years. I've worked with venture-backed AI and 2 private equities. So a little bit all over the place. If you have a problem, but you line up with kind of those 3 criteria, and I feel like I can help you, then I feel like my generalist approach is good.
Well, I've always thought that marketing is marketing, right? Whether it's a zoo or a bank or an AI technology firm, as long as you're willing to invest the time and resources to understand that particular business in whatever industry it is, you can apply all the principles of marketing and the strategy that you've developed over the years to make it work for anybody. And so there's a lot of times that we'll be talking to a potential customer maybe, and they only want somebody who specializes in this, or you can only work in this industry or we're not going to hire you. And certainly if you're an agency that specializes in that industry, you can use that to your advantage, right? But I do agree with your approach that a generalist can solve a lot of problems that a company has.
Along those lines, there's kind of 3 things that popped out to me. One is the generalist is going to survive the AI changes. The generalist is going to survive this disrupting nature that has happened with Google updates and SEO being destroyed in the last year. A generalist is going to survive if LinkedIn doesn't work next year and we all have to move to TikTok. The specialist is going to struggle in all of those areas. And then the second thing is I try to handpick anybody that I'm going to do outbound on. So I pick about 5 people from an account-based perspective that I want to go help. And I go find a specific type of client. And my favorites are, I like to find somebody who has amazing reviews on some type of employee platform, almost like Glassdoor. So go find somebody who has amazing reviews on Glassdoor, but has bad marketing. It means that they're bad at telling their story of how great they are to the outside world. They're great at doing it on the inside. They just don't know how to translate to the outside. And I know that I can solve problems for them rather quickly. And I do the exact same process for people who have a great reviews on Google My Business or great reviews on LinkedIn or some type of B2B review system, but they don't have very many. So I like to go find this person on the second page who might have a 4.9 on some type of software review. They have 20 or 30 reviews, but I know that they should probably have 500. So I go find someone who has an amazing product or service and see how I can amplify what they're great at.
Well, I love your selection criteria for new clients. Are you doing most of that yourself, or do you have some people that support that effort, or that's just like you looking for the client that you want to work with?
When I go after a new industry, I try to think of 3 to 5 clients that I can help that are not going to be competitors, but they're in the same niche. And I determine, I can assume what their margins are, what their play is. Is it trade show? Is it outbound, inbound, whatever? And then I will do the first draft of that outbound with my right hand man or my right hand woman working as an SDR. As soon as we have a little bit of traction, then I become hands off and I pass that. And then it becomes an automated process.
How did you come up with I don't know whether it's a nickname or a moniker, but Strategic Pete? I mean, where'd that come from? It's very clever.
Do you want the exciting one that sounds like I'm a professional marketer, or do you want the truth, or do you want both?
Let's have both. Let our listener, dig through all that and figure out where it end up.
I'll give you the one that sounds like a marketer and that I'm very calculated and I know what I'm doing. So my first client that I picked up in a fractional point of view about 5 years ago regularly told me over and over again, "You're not a marketer, you're a strategist." And so I looked it up. Could I find the domain strategicpete.com? And I did. Now, the truth is, I took that story, which is actually true, but it happened afterwards, after I found the Amazon Prime show Sneaky Pete. And Sneaky Pete rhymes so well. I'm like, oh, I wonder if I could be Sneaky Pete. No, who wants to work with somebody sneaky? So why don't I be a little bit more strategic Pete?
It's perfect. Fits you very well. Fits your agency very well, I think, for what you're doing, because it kind of takes on a very personal entity.
And I think, looking back on it, a little bit of luck, a little bit of evolution as well, is that client who said that to me over and over again. And that's not why I chose the name, but now looking back on it from a branding point of view, from a positioning point of view, from a messaging point of view, it makes so much more sense because what I do is actually strategy. Marketing has got a bad name, in the last 10 years, unfortunately, because there's a bad players out there. So not playing in that category has been good for us.
So do you think going forward with AI, particularly, that strategy is going to be more and more important for someone like us?
Yeah, I think that if you can 10x your output or 100x your output right now, that might have a 2x or 3x impact, right? Output's not the same thing as impact. If you can approach AI with amazing strategy beforehand, that 100x output might have a 10x or 20x impact. So I think you need to approach AI beforehand with a framework of what are you trying to achieve. You're not trying to do just more of the same thing. Who wants more of a bad strategy, right? Like you don't want 10 times the amount of bad or poorly prepared nails to sell for a construction site, right? You want a 10x better nails so you can 10x your margin.
So AI certainly is disrupting the marketplace. I mean, every industry, right? Particularly ours. You see any other disruptors out there right now?
Legal and healthcare. I have a very, very close friend who is a well-known attorney in his space, even more so, which is funny, is in the tech space and then banking space. And I asked him about 6 months ago if he was using AI. He said never once, never logged into it, just reads about it in the New York Times and the Post and the Journal and so forth. And then I asked him about 2 or 3 weeks ago. He goes, like once in a while I'll play around with it for fun, but not for work. And I told him, I said, every contract that I've sent you in the last 6 months, I write the contract first with AI and then send it to you for a once over. And, you charge me an hour now, whereas before I had to pay an attorney for a template and then pay them for 2 hours to adjust the template. So it's disrupting it there. And in healthcare, it's disrupting from a wonderful point of view and what it's going to pick up on in your charts and my charts when we have some kind of weird sickness or when our mom or dad goes into long-term care or nursing home, it's going to pick up on their risks better than the human eye.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see where it all plays out. Being involved in a variety of different kinds of client work, certainly running a pretty much a full service agency. What are you kind of seeing out there that's aside from AI, things that are maybe leading the pack in terms of performance?
Outside of AI, right?
Yes.
I think the two things that I'm noticing, and these are related, they're kind of like distant cousins or third cousins, cousin from Oklahoma and the other one from Ohio, and they see each other every 10 years.
But they're nothing alike, right?
Yes, yes. Is The play between listening and attention. So, if you're into politics right now, all the Democrats are talking about how great Trump is flooding the market and getting the attention on what he needs. If you're not into politics and you're into marketing, Gary Vee's most recent book around attention being a day trading asset, it's kind of in the same world. So it's knowing how you get the attention of your prospect, your ICP, and your client on the channels that they are on. And I think that that's a game changer. We see legacy media dying in part because they didn't know how to adjust, partially because of mistrust, but also we just don't turn on our cable news today like we did 5 years ago. We get our news on YouTube or TikTok or LinkedIn or Twitter or X or whatever it is. So there's an attention play there that I see great marketers, great agencies, great CEOs starting to pay attention to. Now, we may not know exactly what to do with it yet, but we're paying attention to it early, which is going to give us an advantage. And then the distant cousin is listening, right? So going back and listening to your client, going back and looking at your reviews, going back and listen to your upset clients, pay attention to your onboarding, your offboarding, listen to what people are saying about you, what they want more from you. If you go back to the basics of, why I was successful in the travel industry in 2007, which I learned from my grandpa when he started a bank in 1970, it's listening and knowing your client's name. An extension of that in 2025 is not knowing their name, it's knowing their likes and where they hang out, and then you can get their attention. As long as you start with the basics of having a great service or a product, like the way that I try to find clients, those two things will help you get an advantage over your competitors and make you more resilient to any of the disruptors that are coming in the next couple of years. Even if you're not digitalized yet, right? If you haven't embraced digitalization, those two things, attention and better listening, will give you an advantage.
That is very insightful. Go back to the beginning. You and I both started agencies. What would you say to somebody who came to you and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about starting a marketing agency"? What do you think about that?
Marketing agencies are a great way to get started to buy yourself your first job. Running an agency and scaling an agency are very different. So running an agency is very fun. You get to solve problems. You learn quickly. You have some skin in the game, like your client churns. It's scary type of thing. It's not the same thing as an employee. So know that, give it a try. I don't have a strong take on if you should niche down or be a generalist. I hear all of that. For me, it's noise. I see brilliant marketing agencies on both sides of that coin that are doing amazing, and I admire both of them, so I listen to both of them. Now, on the scaling side of things, I think this is what most people don't understand. Scaling an agency so you're not in the day-to-day, scaling an agency so you can sell contracts or sell your company when the contracts are dependent on who you are as a person and people trusting Cliff or trusting Peter. That's a whole nother ballgame. It's a different skill set, right? Like I didn't walk into this knowing how I would scale nor sell, and I'm learning it as I go. Whereas solving people's problems, I've been able to do that for 20 years, but they're two different things.
Well, they absolutely are. And, it's funny. I have a lot of friends in this industry, as you do, I'm sure as well, that you just get to know over the years at conferences or workshops or through groups or whatever. But people start agencies a lot of times because they think they're creative, and they probably are, and they want to do creative work and they want to work with other people, but they don't know a lot about running the business side of what you do. Or in my case, and this is sort of a flaw of mine looking back over the years, I never really learned how to do any kind of design. I don't do Photoshop. And I think back about it and I'm like, I have pretty good taste. I have good ideas. I think I would have been good at it. But the details or the day to day details, many times you need to have others help you. And scaling is really the only way to get to that point. But you got to recognize what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are and find people and put them around you to complement what you do. And that is hard for many people.
Yeah, and I don't want to put somebody into a box, but my experience is the greater the marketer you are for just one client, the more attentive you are to detail or the more detail oriented you are. The more detail oriented you are, the struggles for scaling are higher. So you might be great at one client, but helping 10 means that you're going to need a team of 5 to 10 people, depending on how big your retainers are and what your engagement is. And overseeing 10 people is a huge challenge for detail-oriented people. So I'm similar to you, Cliff. I don't know if I can find Premiere on my computer. The only thing that I could ever edit would be a picture because I'm kind of a photographer. But from a graphic point of view, I don't give a lot of advice on websites. I hire somebody smarter than me to oversee that and is detail oriented. Now, that person, I wouldn't hire them as my project manager to oversee my 10 best employees either. Now, you can overcome what I just told you. I've seen smart people do it, but I personally might have lost my first client because I wasn't attentive enough to detail. But when I scale, I have enough money to hire people way smarter than me to pay attention to those details.
Yeah. I have found that people hire you for your ideas and your creativity and your strategy, but they keep you because you take care of those details. Because this is a detail business. And so there's so much that can get lost in the shuffle or not be paid attention to. And the other side of that is that, as you bring people on, as you're scaling your agency, and you're growing a business, you have the struggle between, okay, I don't really have enough work to bring on a full-time web developer, but I'd really like to have a full-time web developer. And so you got that balance of how am I going to keep them busy? We're going to maybe give away a little profitability because we need this person. It's not easy, is it? Let's talk a little bit about the personal side of Strategic Pete. You live in the Midwest, you've lived all over. What do you like to do? What's your lifestyle all about?
This is where the professional and personal hat do have a little bit of overlap. When I am not running Strategic Pete, I'm doing documentaries and TV shows. So I have sold and produced and directed and been the host of 3 documentaries in the last year. And those are documentaries that will be on Amazon Prime or Netflix probably in the next year. Right now, I'm in the healthcare space. So I'm doing documentaries for people who want to tell their story and broadcast quality, long form storytelling. So documentaries. The other thing that I do is, and this fills my creative bucket, is I've been a TV host for almost 10 years in South America. So I do a show that's very similar to Mike Rowe's Dirty Jobs. I've done more than 150 jobs in my last 10 years of television. And I love that because both of them allow me to be creative, improve my communication skills. Both of them allow me to travel quite a bit. And I bring my wife and my son with me as much as possible. A little bit of carryover into that means my wife and son and I try to live a little bit of a nomadic lifestyle. So we have my son in a school that we can pull him 2 to 3 months out of the year. My wife and I then homeschool him in that time when we are traveling. Last year, we went to South America for about 3 months. We were in Brazil, Argentina, and Chile. Our next goal is to teach my son, we speak Spanish at home. Our next goal is to teach him Portuguese in the next year or two. And then after that, we want to go to France for a year or two, learn French. So kind of our travel is our mojo in our family of 3.
I love that. What a great experience that young man is having. And you guys too. I mean, you got to be having fun and living all over the world. And, as I get older, I realize this more and more. And I think you're way ahead of me on that. But there are so many great places in the world. And we enjoy a very laid back Midwest lifestyle. And we travel as well. But there's just so many great places to go. I love your approach to that.
Yeah, I don't think you need to think about borders to think that you want to replicate what sounds like a glorious version of my travel, right? You and I are 3 hours away from Bentonville for spring break. We're considering if the weather's good enough, we're going to go do Katy Trail in Missouri. And if the weather's not good enough, we're going to go to Tulsa. We bought a camper. So keeping it simple for us is great. Turning off your cell phone, reading a book, getting the campfire, and having chocolate milk with my 8-year-old is better than learning Portuguese.
I agree with that. And if you do get on the Katy Trail, you're going to come right through Sedalia, Missouri.
I think I know someone who lives there.
That's right. That's right. I'll be happy to entertain you while you're here. Because, yeah, it comes in the southwest side of town and it exits on the northeast. And you get to see quite a dichotomy of our community as you go through there. What's the longest rail to trail path in America? Couple quick things maybe as we wrap up. First of all, I've really enjoyed visiting with you today. I love your perspective on what you do and how you do it. I'm envious in many ways What else would we learn about you that maybe we wouldn't see in your LinkedIn profile? Or maybe you've already shared it all.
That's a good one. I'll give you a funny one and then maybe give you a little bit more serious. A funny one is I try to force myself to sleep outside in a hammock about probably 20 times a year. And I try to do it in cold temperatures to teach myself to appreciate the small things in life, not need technology, to learn how to be still, how to keep my mind still. When I travel to South America, I travel with a really small hammock and I sleep in that hammock almost every single day if I can find two trees in a safe place in the back of my mother-in-law's house or an Airbnb or something. So that's kind of a goofy thing about me. And I think I shared at the beginning, I live inside of a zoo. So I do live inside of a zoo, which means that when I put up my hammock in the spring and the fall in Kansas, I hear lions at night when I'm sleeping.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Serious side is I love all things mental health. I worked in the HIV AIDS industry when I got out of college. I love anything related to empowering people to be thankful in life. So I do a lot of inspirational talks around gratitude. I have kind of a mantra that I always tell people, which is there's a big return on investment, there's a big ROI in caring. So this world where we feel like we need to be over connected and I need to be the most unique person in the world, I think that that is overselling and under delivering and setting you up for a really unhappy life. And we just need to manage our expectations and be so much more thankful for each day that we have. So mental health and making people feel proud for who they are and forgiving yourselves for your struggles keeps me motivated.
Amen. Amen. We should all be more grateful, shouldn't we? So, one of the reasons we do this podcast is to help people better understand rural America and the people who live here. When I say those words, how would you share your thoughts? What would they be about rural America?
Oh man, you have some great questions. So, one of my favorite kind of books that I've read in the last 5 years is called Emotional Equations by Chip Conley. And in this book, he breaks down the majority of emotions that we feel throughout our lives and puts them into simple equations that we can remember to determine how we can have an impact on those emotions. And one of my favorite ones, and I know that this is a podcast, not necessarily a video, so I'll describe it, but to Cliff, I'll show you, is an emotional equation around how you can determine how content you are, how happy you are in life. And I learned this from the Midwest. I learned this from rural America. So it's an equation that I'm showing Cliff right now on my forearm, which is happiness is equal to reality divided by expectations. So my reality of where I was born, maybe Kansas is boring, or maybe I didn't have a good education, or maybe my dad wasn't present, is not what is going to determine how happy is. Rather, it's what are my expectations for life and how content I can be with what I was given, what I can make out of that is going to kind of determine that. And I would never have that outlook had I not spent time growing up in the Midwest. I went to a prestigious college in Boston. I didn't learn that. I have my master's and almost finished my PhD in South America. I wouldn't have learned that. I'm thankful from what I learned from rural America that gives me that foundation to be the happy, optimistic person I am today.
I love that. Hey, what else would you like to share with our audience? Anything as we wrap up today?
Reach out to Cliff and ask him how you can pay him back. Ask him what, like I've been listening to this podcast for 6 months or a year and say, what can I do for you? Share it. For me, if there's something that you heard from this talk, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I think I'm the only Peter Murphy Lewis on LinkedIn. I'm publishing a book in the next month. I'll give it away to you for free. So reach out and say thank you. As a podcast host myself and as a TV host myself, you don't get a lot of feedback. So my ask is to reach out and tell Cliff, thank you.
Hey, I appreciate that. What's your book about?
It's about how to turn interns into A players. So it goes back kind of the methodology that I use with clients. I've overseen more than 100 interns since I started doing entrepreneurship back in 2007. And as I shared, the majority of my interns become my full-time employees. So I've turned that into a blueprint, to a process that other people can replicate.
That's going to be a great read. Hey, Pete, really have enjoyed visiting with you, getting to know you. I hope you do come to Sedalia and ride the Katy Trail. If there's anything I can do for you, please let me know.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure.
Thanks, folks. Thanks for listening to Outdrive. I hope you've enjoyed our visit today with Peter Murphy Lewis, founder and CEO of Strategic Pete. If you liked it, go out and give us a nice rating and review, and come back again next week, and I'll take you down the roads of rural America where it is heaven on earth.
Thanks for taking a ride with us on OutDrive. This episode is complete, so head on over to ecalis.com for more insight you can apply to help drive your business growth. And be sure to sign up for our free monthly e-letter, OutThink, for even more helpful content about marketing to rural America. Have a great day and keep on driving.